What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight, undisputed world champion, currently WBO welterweight world champion, and widely considered the #1 pound-for-pound boxer in the sport of boxing, Terence Bud Crawford, did an interview with Brian Custer in which he had a few interesting things to say and a few interesting takes that I took away from it. One in particular, well, two things. He was asked about his resume and do he feel like he get the respect he deserves. Terence Crawford said that he don't feel like he get the respect he deserves. He says that a lot of his opponents are being downplayed. More so, particular Jose Benavidez, Jeff Horn, and Amir Khan, right? He stated that nobody has outboxed Amir Khan like he's outboxed Amir Khan. He said, I outboxed Amir Khan and stopped him. Well, I say that, Amir Khan quit in the fight. He says that people say, instead of giving him his credit for beating Amir Khan, he says that people say that Amir Khan was past his prime. Amir Khan was done. Instead of giving him his credit for just outboxing Amir Khan, he says that, how about people just say, hey, you outboxed Amir Khan? Well, he says every time you saw Amir Khan lose, it was because he was knocked out. So I have to say this, Terence Crawford. First of all, Amir Khan was past his prime, is past his prime, and hasn't been the same fighter in a very long time, right? That's just number one. Then he goes and he says that Shawn Porter, and I wanted to address this, Shawn Porter didn't want to fight him until he was without a title. He says Shawn Porter didn't make mention of my name until he wasn't a champion. When Shawn Porter was a champion, he didn't call me out. Well, there's two problems wrong with that situation, that scenario, right? For one, when Shawn Porter was first world champion, right, when he held the IBF title, when Shawn Porter held the IBF title, right, and he lost it to Kell Brook, okay? This was back in August of 2014, okay? When he held the IBF welterweight title and was a champion at the welterweight division, and he lost to Kell Brook ultimately, when he first won it, that was back in 2013 against Devin Alexander. He defended against Paulie Malignaggi, then he successfully defended against Paulie Malignaggi, then he lost to Kell Brook. That was August of 2014. Terence Crawford made his welterweight debut in June of 2018. So when he made his welterweight debut, Shawn Porter wasn't a champion. So why would Shawn Porter make mention of your name? He wasn't a champion. He was trying to put himself back in position to become a champion. He wasn't a champion. Okay? So Shawn Porter then went on to eventually face Danny Garcia. He fought Keith Thurman. He lost the fight with Keith Thurman, right? He didn't win the world title then. So that was when he fought Keith Thurman. That was 2016. Even then, Terence Crawford wasn't a welterweight. Okay? Then Shawn Porter won the title in September of 2018 against Danny Garcia. Is when he captured the WBC title. Well, Terence Crawford beat Jeff Horn in June of 2018. It's 3 months apart. And immediately following Terence Crawford victory over Jeff Horn, everybody was screaming for the Manny Pacquiao fight. But nonetheless, when Shawn Porter beat Danny Garcia, everybody was calling for Shawn Porter to face off against ERROL Spence Jr. Right? Even ERROL Spence got in the ring immediately after Shawn Porter defeated Danny Garcia and was calling for the fight. Shawn Porter, so now before I get to that point, Terence Crawford says that he is doing something that they're not doing, right? He says that I'm fighting my mandatories. I'm fighting the guys that they putting in front of me. I'm not picking and choosing like they are. Who's a tall guy, a short guy, a tough guy, a journeyman. I'm just fighting whoever they put in front of me. This is what Terence Crawford had to say. Well, okay. He also made mention that Yordenis Ugas is a possible opponent. Well, guess what? Yordenis Ugas was Shawn Porter's mandatory. So Shawn Porter fought Yordenis Ugas, and then he fought Errol Spence. So at what point in time was Shawn Porter a champion where he had the freedom to call out Terence Crawford and make a unification bout? So Terence Crawford said that Shawn Porter wasn't calling him out to make a unification bout. Well, he wasn't a champion when you made your debut, okay? He didn't win his title till 3 months after you won yours and made your welterweight debut. That's number one. When he did capture the belt, he already had something scheduled with the guy that you are looking to fight as the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, and that's Errol Spence. So he had Yordenis Ugas as his mandatory, and nobody was happy about that because they wanted Shawn Porter to immediately go and defend the title in a unification bout with Errol Spence. So he never had time when he was world champion or the freedom to fight Terence Crawford in a unification bout. So the fact that he's saying that Shawn Porter waited till he's not a champion to call him out is false. Okay, that's totally false. Now he goes on to say that the guys that he's fighting, Egis Kavaluskas and Jose Benavidez, are just as tough of opponents as the other fighters are fighting on the PBC side. Well, again, that is false. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Egis Kavaluskas, Jose Benavidez, Jeff Horn, and Amir Khan wouldn't be favored against any of those guys. Okay? Amir Khan can't beat Danny Garcia. We already saw that. He already knocked out Amir Khan. Amir Khan, nobody would dare put him in the ring with Errol Spence, right? Amir Khan didn't want to fight Shawn Porter. He would lose that fight anyway. You understand? So the upper echelon of the PBC welterweight division, Amir Khan doesn't stand a chance. Egis Kavaluskas may be a tough out, but nobody's gonna favor him to beat Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, or Shawn Porter, or Manny Pacquiao. You're not gonna do it. Point blank and period. Are they gonna be rollover opponents? No. But is anybody gonna say that they stand a chance to beat these opponents? No. It's not going to happen. They wouldn't be favored to win any of those fights. And this is what Terence Crawford is missing. I think this is the point. The point that Terence Crawford is missing is that these guys wouldn't know. They're fighting 50-50 fights. Danny Garcia versus Shawn Porter is a 50-50 fight. Errol Spence and Danny Garcia, at worst, is a 60-40 fight in favor of Errol Spence. Right? Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence, 50-50 fight. Keith Thurman versus Shawn Porter, 50-50 fight. Keith Thurman versus Danny Garcia, 50-50 fight. Keith Thurman versus Manny Pacquiao was a 50-50 fight. Terence Crawford versus Egis Kavaluskas is not a 50-50 fight. Nor would Egis Kavaluskas, Jose Benavidez, Jeff Horn, or Amir Khan be a 50-50 fight with Danny Garcia. That won't be a 50-50 fight with either of them, right? Danny Garcia would be a favorite in all those fights. Shawn Porter would be a favorite in all those fights. Keith Thurman would be favorite in all of those fights. Errol Spence would definitely be favorite in all those fights, and so would Manny Pacquiao in all of those fights. But yet they are fighting 50-50 because they're fighting each other. This is the difference. And people get mad when you state the obvious. People don't like truth. This is the truth. And I'm not taking anything away from them, but when you compare him, when Terence Crawford is comparing them at the level of opponents that they're facing to there's no comparison. Now, this is not taken away from his talent and who he is as a boxer. I'm just saying, as a comparison with them compared to, it's not a comparison. It's just not. Okay? Lamont Peterson beat Amir Khan. Errol Spence beat Lamont Peterson. Now you could say, well, some people thought that Lamont Peterson got a gift decision against Amir Khan because he was in his backyard. Well, it was still a close enough fight where Lamont Peterson got the edge. It's plain and simple. And Errol Spence whitewashed Lamont Peterson. So there you have Danny Garcia knocked out Amir Khan, and Lamont Peterson beat Amir Khan. And Amir Khan did a lot of excessive holding in that fight with Lamont Peterson. But he lost both those fights. Right? So then you have to look at Jose Benavidez, right? Then he goes on to say, well, Kell Brook would have possibly beat Errol Spence if he wasn't injured. And now you guys know I always say that Kell Brook wasn't 100% because once you break this eye socket, it's easier for this one to break. Nonetheless, he says that Terence Crawford says he don't get the respect he deserved for beating Jose Benavidez because everybody uses the fact that he was wounded, his knee was wounded, and he had an injury, serious injury to it, so he never gets the respect for it, right? Because he was shot in the knee, right? So he don't get the respect for it because people always use that as an excuse and say, well, he was never 100%. But then he follows that up by saying, well, Errol Spence would have lost to Kell Brook if Kell Brook was 100%, and he don't count the fact that Kell Brook lost to Gennady Golovkin because he dared to be great and move up 2 weight classes. Well, he dared to be great, moved up those 2 weight classes, and got himself injured and derailed his career ultimately. So he says that, but then he went from that fight, didn't give his body time enough to heal, went in the Errol Spence fight in which he was winning that fight, and he got injured again. So essentially, you're discrediting Errol Spence win over Kell Brook for the same reason that you saying you don't like the fact that people don't discredit your win over Jose Benavidez. But on the flip side of that, you're saying you want to fight Kell Brook over your Danis Ugas because he's a higher profile fight. Well, now you have to look at it from this standpoint. Now you're dealing with Kell Brook, who had 2 injuries and 2 tough fights, hadn't fought even a B-level opponent since then, and then you're going to look to fight him, and then you want people to give you full credit for beating Kell Brook. Essentially, you discredited your own self. Because now, if you to beat Kell Brook, people gonna say, well, he was injured twice, seriously. He didn't fight not even a B-level fighter. Then you fought him and beat him. And then you're going to want to get the just dues for beating Kell Brook as Errol Spence did. How could that be possible? That's not possible. So he said that, he's fighting the same level opponent as everybody else. He's just not getting the credit. And this is false. Okay? And this is where the narrative gets twisted and turned and gets all lost because people start to then say that you're hating on Terence Crawford when you start to state the obvious. And it's not a point of hating on Terence Crawford. It's about stating the obvious, right? If you're saying Shawn Porter ducked you until he wasn't a champion, now you essentially you're saying that he just wants a high-profile fight because he's no longer a champion. Well, that's not true because like I just stated, Shawn Porter was last a champion in 2014. You didn't make your welterweight debut till 4 years later. And when you did make your welterweight debut, that was June of 2018. He still wasn't a world champion when you beat Jeff Horn. He didn't become a champion until September when he beat Danny Garcia. And then he already had situations he had to deal with. Your Danis Ugas was mandatory and Errol Spence was already set in stone. So how could he possibly be looking and free to give Terence Crawford the opportunity? Then another thing he said was he re-signed with Top Rank and Bob Arum in hopes to get the Manny Pacquiao fight. Well, by the time you recently re-signed, Manny Pacquiao was with PBC already. So now I do agree with Terence Crawford that he was trying to get the Manny Pacquiao fight prior to Manny Pacquiao leaving Top Rank. But as Bob Arum, legendary promoter, CEO of Top Rank, promoter of, at that point, Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford, Bob Arum said he stood in the way. That's nobody else's fault but essentially yours and Bob Arum's, because Bob Arum blocked you from getting that big fight. He said he didn't want to see Manny Pacquiao in a situation where he could possibly get hurt. So Bob Arum blocked the fight, your promoter. He stopped it. And now, so then he goes on to say, well, when Manny Pacquiao left, immediately after he left, when he beat Adrian Broner, everybody's saying he turned back the hands of time and looked like his old self, like he was 10 years younger. He said, when I was trying to fight him, everybody was saying he was past it. And they didn't want to see him get hurt. Well, Bob Arum was the one saying that. Now Bob Arum recently come out and stated that, well, you know, Manny Pacquiao did look great. He did prove me wrong. And I'm willing to make the fight happen between him and Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford. So now he's pushing for it, right? So my thing is this. This is where the narrative gets all confused and the gray area starts to come in. Is when he's saying that he's not getting the credit he deserves. Or he's saying that, you know, Shawn Porter didn't want to fight me. Or he said, that's not true. Right? Now he's saying, well, Keith Thurman is now saying, send over the contract and I'll sign to fight you. Okay, now, well, Keith Thurman is another case. Keith Thurman, when Terence Crawford made his debut and came into the welterweight division, Keith Thurman was pushing him off and writing him off and saying he was too small. So I agree with him in the standpoint of Keith Thurman. Even when Keith Thurman said send over the contract, he still said it still wouldn't be fair. He was talking in circles. Keith Thurman still said it wouldn't be fair to fight Terence Crawford right now, so on and so forth. Right? So he don't seem to be too eager to step in the ring with Terence Crawford, and I agree with that. I'm in agreement with Terence Crawford with that. But when it comes to Manny Pacquiao, Bob Arum blocked that. And when it comes to Shawn Porter, that's just simply just not true. Now, Danny Garcia, another situation, right? Now, Mikey Garcia, another guy, former 4th Division World Champion. Mikey Garcia avoided Terence Crawford. No ifs, ands, about it. Danny Garcia, I think this is a fight that should have been made. Danny Garcia was looking to make other fights, and he truly wasn't acknowledging Terence Crawford. So if Terence Crawford want to say Danny Garcia avoided him, okay. I can see how he could say that. But still, we could break down the Mikey Garcia situation. Danny Garcia, excuse me. Mikey Garcia flat out ducked Terence Crawford, said he don't like his style, don't like how his style matches up with his. It'll bore him, bore the fans, so on and so forth. He ducked him, right? Now, when Danny Garcia become the WBC champion, that was 2016. Terence Crawford wasn't a welterweight. He then defended it against Samuel Vargas in November of 2016. Again, Terence Crawford wasn't a welterweight. He still was a junior welterweight. Then he defended it in a unification bout against Keith Thurman. Was a big fight that was in March of 2017. He still wasn't a welterweight. Right? Then he lost. Danny Garcia lost to Keith Thurman. Then he fought Brandon Rios, beat Brandon Rios, right? At the time he beat Brandon Rios, guess what? Terence Crawford still wasn't a welterweight. Then Danny Garcia fought Shawn Porter for the vacant WBC title that Keith Thurman had to vacate due to inactivity. That was in September. This is, like I said, when Shawn Porter won his title, Danny Garcia lost the fight. Then Danny Garcia just beat Adrian Granados and Ivan Redcash and on the verge of fighting Errol Spence. Now, I do agree when Danny Garcia was still campaigning in the junior welterweight division, when Terence Crawford was in and around the weight class, he wasn't eager to step in the ring with him. But as a welterweight, Danny Garcia just wasn't available. The fight wasn't available. Now, when he was a junior welterweight, oh yeah, the fight should have been made. I thought that was a huge fight. That's when they was talking about Danny Garcia and Victor Postol and Terence Crawford. There was a little triangle. Danny Garcia avoided Victor Postol. Terence Crawford fought and beat Victor Postol. Right? So they could have made that fight happen when they was at junior welterweight. But as a welterweight, When was it? It wasn't possible. You understand? Because he wasn't a champion. So for him to say that these guys will avoid him is just not true. Yes, Danny Garcia, Mikey Garcia avoided him in the lower weight classes. As welterweights, no. Shawn Porter has never avoided Terence Crawford. Right? Errol Spence laid out a plan, and then he said that he asked Errol Spence on a phone call, "What's your plan?" He said when Errol Spence laid out his plan, and this goes back to what I said before, that Father Time is undefeated, and I was told that I was creating a narrative because I'm making it seem as if Terence Crawford is old. Terence Crawford again repeated that he don't want to be in the sport too much longer. And so he said that Errol Spence laid out his plan, his fight plan, and he told Errol Spence, well, if that's your fight plan, then me and you probably will never fight because I don't have that time. Now, Errol Spence just told us what his fight plan was. So I'm sure he told Terence Crawford the same fight plan he had planned. He's looking to fight Danny Garcia, right? Which was supposed to take place in January. So if the fight would have took place, if the car accident didn't happen October 10th, the horrific car accident that Errol Spence suffered, then the Danny Garcia fight would have happened already, and he would be on the verge of fighting Manny Pacquiao. Well, we know the pandemic and quarantine, but that would have been taking place, I believe, it would have been around this time. So this fight coming up would be Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao. Then the fight with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford would be, sooner rather than later. But seeing as though he suffered the accident, then the Danny Garcia fight got pushed back, and now due to the pandemic and the quarantine, it got pushed even further back. But this was the fight plan that he laid out. So, at times I just feel like Terence Crawford does himself a disservice when he says these things because it's just not true in its totality, point blank and period. And this is not taking anything away from his skill set or Terence Crawford as a boxer, because I believe he's great. And I believe he's the only person that could offset Terence Crawford will be Shawn Porter and will be Errol Spence. I think he outbeats Danny Garcia. I think he beats Keith Thurman. Right? I think the fight, I would love to see how he make the adjustments to deal with Shawn Porter and his style. And I think the 50-50 fight is Errol Spence. But I think he'd be favored and would beat Danny Garcia. I think he would beat Keith Thurman. And I think that, he would definitely beat Mikey Garcia. And, I think he'd be your Dana Sugas. These are tough tests, but I think he comes out on top of all these fights, except for the question mark would be Errol Spence. Point blank and period. But to match up your resume and what you're doing is saying that you're not getting your credit and your just dues for the opponents that you're facing is false. And to say that Amir Khan was at the top of his game when you beat him and never been outboxed. Yeah, Amir Khan has been knocked out. Has he been outboxed? No. But Lamont Peterson beat him in a decision. And yeah, regardless if he was never outboxed, he was knocked out. He was knocked out early in his career by Brettis Prescott. He was knocked out by Danny Garcia before you fought him. He was knocked out by Canelo Alvarez before him. And he lost to Lamont Peterson before you fought him. So regardless of how you want to slice it, he wasn't the same fighter. Point blank and period. Now, Jose Benavidez, I don't count that injury. I just think that you beat Jose Benavidez, Terence Crawford. Jeff Horn, you outclassed him. Yes, I think that, and again, he said that Jeff Horn just pushed around and beat Manny Pacquiao. Regardless if you think Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao or not. When it comes to Manny Pacquiao and Terence Crawford, I think that Terence Crawford beats Manny Pacquiao. I think the style is all wrong, no matter what point in time in their career they stand. Point blank and period. I think he beats Manny Pacquiao. Right? But again, Bob Arum came out and clarified and said he was the one that stood in the way from Terence Crawford fighting Manny Pacquiao. So you got to look at it from that standpoint. So let's see how this all unfolds. I can't wait, man. It's exciting, the welterweight division. I can't wait to see how it all rounds out. But that's all I got for y'all. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.